July 16th, and as we saw yesterday, Bitcoin's price was here. I told you it was going to gain a bit of momentum, meaning take a breather and drop down to 63,800 and then continue next week to aim for this upper area of the channel, that is above 65,000. And that's exactly what we've seen. It's a clear and simple forecast. It's not like I just randomly think the price is going to go there. What I do is apply a simple technique that I explain in the course I've designed with the discount that I've put for you in a link. But what I do is watch what the big players are doing. That is, all the markets, in this case, Bitcoin, move because the big players decide to move the price. They don't move because of indicators or anything else. So what we do is look for those clues left by the big players, join in on those clues, those strategies, and win like the big players win, instead of losing like retail traders do. I'm Mikel Vasquez, and after 15 years in professional trading, I can tell you that this is what works best. At least from my point of view, it's the only thing I've seen that works consistently. It makes sense. If there's an institution or a group of people with a lot of money who control the price however they want, the most logical thing is to figure out what they want to do, follow their lead, and win the way they do. Don't try to get ahead of the move using indicators. What they do is simply buy in a zone that's, let's say, cheap, quickly move the price to a more expensive zone, and sell it. As we can see on the chart, they do this over and over again. In other words, they create what's called an accumulation, according to Wyckoff, which I also explain in my course. They do a markup and then a distribution. And the other way around, they do a distribution, a markdown, and then an accumulation. Over and over again, that's how they fill their coffers. They go to a more expensive spot and sell them again and again. Very good. Today, as I mentioned, is July 16th, and we're going to make the forecast. If you watched my previous videos, I told you exactly what was going to happen. And now we're going to do the same thing. The first thing we always do is look for support and resistance levels, which is price action and the shapes of Japanese candlesticks that give us a lot of clues without having to look for what the institutions are doing. Institutions are always identified by volume. In price action, the most important things are support and resistance, which give us a channel. The channel is between 60,000 and 68,000. Let's say 68, 69, but lately we've been leaning more towards 68 because that's the area that was highlighted the last time the price was there. Very good. As you can see, the price is always in an accumulation phase in the long term. Right now, we're on the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, looking at the long term. I'll show you in just a moment. I set each candle to 1 week to see what the price is doing in the long term and which Wyckoff phase we're in. We're in a long-term accumulation phase where the price always goes from, well, the resistance, which was support when it broke through, obviously. 68, 69, aiming for 60. Aiming for 69 again, aiming for 60 again, aiming for 69 again. And as you can see, when it gets to the middle of the channel, it often does a kind of dance. That is, in all channels which are marked by support and resistance, there are 3 elements to keep in mind: the actual support, the resistance, and also the middle of the channel. Those are the 3 most important elements. That's why I was telling you that the price still wasn't ready to break out clearly in this upper half of the channel. It was going to gather momentum again. When I talk about gathering momentum, it always means going back to the area around the middle of the channel, a bit lower, which, as you can see, is where the last phase of distribution happened. What I was telling you about the long term, and I also wanted to mention, at the end of the video, I'll show you the July challenge, which I know you're following, and you'll see how yesterday's entry went, whether I won or not. We'll check that out at the end. Now, as we always do, let's set each candle to 1 week to identify the Wyckoff phase, and it's an accumulation phase. That's something you really need to keep in mind to see when the breakout happens. Right now, we're waiting for a markup breakout to occur. Not yet. It's clear that it's not going to happen yet because it hasn't even clearly entered the upper part of the channel. But you have to keep it in mind to always know which area we're in, especially to identify these markup zones. This is a markup, this is a markdown, as I explained in my course, markup, markdown, so you don't go against the trend. For example, when we're in a sideways movement in the long term, sideways movement means accumulation or distribution, right? It's important to go with the flow, but it's not essential and it won't lead to losses. You'll just have to wait longer for it to reach a zone. On the other hand, when you do it during a markdown or a markup, you could end up with losses or just have to wait way too long. Because of course, here each candle represents a week from here to here, for example. If you went short expecting to take profits quickly, you might have to wait 3 months. That's not profitable for short-term trading, which is what we're doing on this channel. Let's go to the 4-hour chart. We already know this is an accumulation, as I mentioned before, and as we've been tracking throughout all the videos. I upload videos daily. Now, what we're waiting for, let me show you the simple volume, which is where you can find all the clues about the big players. As you can see, ever since it's been in this area, approaching from below, like it did last week around the middle of the channel at 64,000, the volume has been very low. In other words, they're trying to slow down the price, moving little by little so it doesn't attract too much attention. And that's why when you look at it from a bigger perspective, like over a week, the price is staying in this area because there aren't any big accumulations or major liquidity exchanges. We've seen this matches up perfectly. This big candle matches a wide spread. This in the US, which I also explained in my course, is a pretty normal pattern. It would be concerning if we saw a significant volume and at the same time the candle spread is smaller. That would be signaling an upward move. We can see it here. The upward move happens once, then it takes a breather and happens again. And now we're in the third time of that move, simply because it is mismatched between the volume and the candle spread. This is the third law of VSA. And when it's broken, it's a very important factor for entering both on the weekly chart, which is what we're looking at, and on intraday or scalping. Very good. We're not seeing those big volume spikes. We're only seeing them accompanied by a good candle spread. That's why the movement naturally aligns quite well with price action, without taking into account the strategies of the big players. Price action will tell us that the price needs to drop to the middle of the channel, gain momentum, and start making moves into the upper area. That's already a forecast for the next few days. Over the weekend and into Monday and Tuesday, we'll see the price in this area. In other words, retests will always happen from the top down toward the 64 area, and the price will bounce back up. That's the most normal thing for us to see. A little below 64, which is 63,800, is what we've been seeing in the latest bounces. The way this forecast could take longer to happen, because it will happen, but it might take longer, like what happened here, is if it gains momentum for a longer period. That would be when we see a significant increase in volume, meaning above 1.5, and it clearly breaks through 64, and we start to see a perfect relationship between the effort, the volume, and the spread of the candles. If we see that, it means it's going to keep gaining more momentum, even lower, possibly in the 61,800 or 60 zone, but that's just a forecast. It's a more remote possibility. It seems like it has already entered the 64 zone and above in a definitive way. What we're going to expect next week is to see the price in this area. Now, let's take a look at scalping or intraday trading, what we can expect. We're also seeing these wicks or large volume candles that correspond to a significant spread. If we zoom out a bit, you can see it better on the 15-minute chart. Let's make it clear. There was a lot of activity here to stop the price when it was approaching the 63,800 area, as I mentioned, which was the bounce zone. Now we're seeing things that definitely catch our attention for scalping, like this huge wick with significant volume. However, the move that this wick with this volume could be signaling is a short movement. However, it's getting very close to this 64 area. And now the short move would be, to put it that way, and to be repetitive, very short. You could enter from here to here, but honestly, it's hardly going to give you any room for profit. You have to wait a bit to see how the price reacts, to see if it bounces strongly off the 64 zone, and then going long would be the most correct position for scalping or intraday trading today, July 16th. Let's also see how it reacts. You know, the volume, important zones. For example, this 64, 600 zone has been marked as very important these days. We need to see how it reacts. All right, now we've already set the forecast for these days, the best elements for scalping or intraday trading. Let's take a look at the July challenge. I'll show you yesterday's entry, and to give you a bit of context, what I did on July 1st was start on mxc.com with a $500 account. Every day I make micro trades, at first for $15, just one per day, then for $20 once the account gets bigger. And what to show you that as long as you enter during a clear trend, it doesn't have to be a huge move. You can still grow this $500 account. I'll show you to take profit as well. Obviously, I won yesterday. Right now, it's exactly at 800. So we started 16 days ago and we've made more than 50% without trying to be greedy or go beyond what the chart gives you. No complications, $300. What I'm gonna do is, with whatever I earn at the end of the month, hopefully I do earn something, I'll raffle it off among everyone who signs up at mexc.com and makes their first deposit. I'll leave the link in the description. And now this. I keep the 500 I put in at the beginning, and whatever I've earned, I'll raffle it off. Also, if you're interested in short-term trades, scalping, or intraday moves, I have a VIP Telegram group where I share the 2 trades I make every day. I'll also leave the link in the description. I'm Mikel Vasquez. This is Daily Bitcoin Analysis. I really appreciate you watching this video, and as I always say, this is not financial advice. I'm just sharing my experience with you after more than 15 years in professional trading. Stay tuned for the videos I'll be uploading every day because we're right in the middle of the channel. It could break out and we might see it in the next few days heading into the weekend within the 65, 66 range, or it could gain more momentum from a lower area. Let's see how the volume reacts in this zone. Stay tuned. See you soon.